Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Empower Show. I am your host, Jen Roberts, and I'm doing such a special one today. Well, this particular episode is super special to me because Rebecca is a dear friend of mine, and I'm introducing you to Rebecca Egbert, who was a practicing midwife for 10 years, but now she is the CEO and founder of Little Mother's Helper, which is a super cool deck of cards and an app that guides modern mothers in the days and the weeks and the months after childbirth. So first, I want the listeners to really kind of understand that you went from delivering babies for a whole decade to then now creating this product that is really about supporting mothers. So I want to know first is, where did you see the lack? What was the impetus for creating this product?
Yeah. The lack came, you deliver so many babies, and I can, it's funny because everything just flooded in as pictures to me. So I am sitting in clinics in different states, and in my own experience of being a girlfriend of new mothers and a sister of new mothers and all that kind of stuff. And the difference between the midwifery, there's a great documentary that just came out by Lisa Ling on CNN called This is Birth. And I am it still gives me goosebumps because it is really, everyone needs to watch it. Turn it on while you're cooking and listen. You don't have to watch, but you can listen. Anyways, because there's lack all over the place with our maternal health system in this country, and it makes me cry at night sometimes. So when I watched all these women, we got really close in the midwifery model of care with our clients, and so they would be in our phones, and this is pre, iPhone phase, and but very much text phase. Yeah.
1 second. I want you to explain, because people that are listening, what is the difference between a doctor delivering your baby or a midwife?
Well, our priorities are all the same, right? A healthy birth and a healthy mom. And so a midwife, the midwifery model of care, a woman is seen longer by her provider. She's seen more times by her provider. Generally, it depends on what model, if you're having a hospital birth or a birth center or a home birth. So there's 3 different ways to have a birth with a midwife in the United States. With a physician, you're going to either have an OB or a family practice doctor or a DO. So, which is an osteopathic doctor. So it just depends on if they go do it. Those DOs and family practice doctors are going to think more holistically and maybe do VBACs and do all these different births. OBs really in most countries are used for those high risk maternal fetal medicine, really where you really need the extra care.
And the interesting thing is that is who is the majority delivering baby.
Yeah, right. So 97% of women will so will deliver in hospital in this country. We have different usage rates, but it's they're still we're still delivering, which is great. I am a proponent of collaborative care.
Absolutely.
And I don't shame. So the difference is that midwives take low risk patients. Mm-hmm. And so really healthy, low risk women, it doesn't matter if, some people are a woman who's overweight is not low risk, but it's if she's a healthy eater and she's willing to work with us within our dietary restrictions and a really good diet, then she can still deliver with us. That makes perfect sense. As long as we have good collaborative care with somebody in a hospital, if something is to go wrong with any woman who might have a situation that might go from low risk to high risk, all women can have that situation. Yeah. So does that answer your question? Do you think?
Oh yeah, no, I mean absolutely. I know that I know that I have one child.
Mm-hmm.
People that are listening.
Where's the other one?
I got one. He's 5 now, but when his father and I had him, and I was pregnant with him, it really propelled me on this journey of kind of understanding all of it. I watched a shit ton of documentaries, and at that time, The Business of Being Born, the first one, had just come out. So that was a game changer for me.
Yeah.
And my experience was, we had talked about wanting a possible home birth. And then I said, Jeremy and I both agreed. I was like, you know what? I met with a midwife, and I just didn't click as much with her. And I was kind of pressed for time. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to feel like this midwife is just kind of fitting me into her schedule. Like I wanted a
Right.
real connection,
Yep.
you know, with that woman she's going to help me birth my baby.
Right.
So I didn't find anybody else. And then I said, you know what, we'll deliver at a hospital, but I'm going to labor at
Yep.
home as much as possible. And we did hire a doula, which I'm so
Which is amazing.
on having a doula.
Yeah.
I did an interview with a woman who is
Yeah.
actually choosing single motherhood. She's now pregnant through IVF, and I was explaining to her why she needs a doula. I don't care if she was with a partner or not, she needs a doula.
Yeah.
So anyway, my labor from start to finish was 38 hours. It was no joke. And my experience in the hospital was kind of everything that I watched.
Right.
And what I mean by that is it's a very surgery happy environment. And what I mean by surgery happy is cesarean,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so I think it was like 20 hours in, and the person that was there, the doctor came in and said, well, you know, we're going to have to think about a C-section. And I'm like, whoa. Like for what?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like, is my baby's heartbeat okay? And she said yes. And I said, nothing's wrong with me. And I said, if this is about me just not progressing as fast for you, absolutely not. And she was pissed off. I mean, she was really angry. And she said, I'm going to write you up and I'm like, whatever. Thank God her shift ended. And then the other doctor came on, he was literally sent from God, because he was very supportive of what I was trying to do. Mm-hmm. But he said, obviously, in case there was an issue, and there was at one point, my son was sunny side up, and then as well, the cord was getting wrapped, so there was a drop. And so they had to kind of flip me and kind of maneuver things. But he just said, look, if this continues to happen or there's an issue, I said, of course. If I need a cesarean, you're not really going to be asking me. You're going to be doing it because that's what I need to do. So, yeah, I mean, my experience was, it was long, it was hard, but I was made aware. I was kind of giggled at a little bit. Yeah. For kind of saying, you know, and they didn't let me take my placenta home. They didn't let me do that. Yeah. And I mean, when I said to them, at that point, after 38 hours, and my son, when he was born, he had the meconium, so they had to get that out first. Yep. At that point, I was so exhausted that I was like, fuck the placenta. You know, like, I don't feel like fighting with people. No, really. It's like, fuck the placenta, you know? So that was my experience, but that was something that I like to bring up, because we're on this topic of, you know, OB midwives and the roles they play, and kind of what the birthing looks like nowadays, right now in the U.S. and really,
midwives fill a really great gap for a lot of the disparities that are happening with low income people, you know, like women, and really cultures. But what's interesting in this documentary is they talk about I guess it's a web series. As they talk about, you know, C-section rates, which I talked about the other day in another interview. And it's just like, you know, again, we're at a place in the United States where the percentage of C-section rates or C-sections being performed is actually more of a risk to a mother than a benefit right now. And the C-section was created to be a life-saving tool, right? So many of your viewers have probably had them because it saved a woman's life. I have been in deliveries where it saved a woman's life and the baby's life, you know? So it's like, every provider understands the benefit of them, but when it gets shifted onto somebody else's schedule or those kind of things, it's a story, right? It's a big story. And so, and it's also a health issue and a public health issue. And so midwives are really, you know, in most countries other than the United States, midwives are used from 40% of the population to 72% of the population. Your Australia listeners, like those women that get it, like I still am asked what's the difference. Like when I say I'm a midwife, people are like, so are you a doula? I'm like, midwife and doula, like no, we're not the same thing. Like that emotional support is so important. But the fact that like I deliver babies, I know how to manage hemorrhage. I know how to like do uterine, like, you know, bimanual compression. I've managed a cord prolapse. I've had to like, you know, like deal with an intrauterine fetal demise. Like the things that we are trained. I did 100 births to graduate, 3 years of education. I worked in 5 different birth environments, 2 busy birth centers. I was delivering like 15 births a month as a student. Like, so I mean, before I could even like touch a woman with my license and with a national license and then three state licenses, I had delivered hundreds of, like 100 babies or more. So at that point, know so much about it, and exactly, like, I remember when I first started delivering in rural Montana by myself, a nurse was my patient. And we had weird heart tones right at the beginning. And I just looked at her. I was just like, you know what? Like, we could do this all day at home. I said, but you're a nurse. I'm a midwife. And we know that that's not a good sign, So, like, let's go do this. And, it was one of those things where her body was just not, like, going to work that day in that capacity to have a vaginal delivery, So there's there's so much of knowing your boundaries, and there's so much political bullshit around midwifery in this country, and it's like, again, the business of being born, and one of my, we're going off on a totally interesting subject, but like one of my heartbreaks this year and all what I've been doing with Little Mothers Helpers, I've been trying to get the product into hospitals, because I believe if women are given education at like 32 weeks about what their whole first year of postpartum health is going to look like. So that's like what we're doing now, or what I'm doing now. And how to take better care of themselves and when to get back to care. We'll see lower risks of postpartum depression. They'll understand what like infections are coming on and how to prevent them, or how to get help for them. Like, what's going on with their relationships, or do they have postpartum depression, or do they have postpartum anxiety? Like all these different things those questions you really want to ask your provider, but you don't have a provider after 6 weeks, right? So that's what Little Mothers Helper at least starts the conversation to, and gets really basic help to start using those tools.
I do want to say regarding the midwife, most people don't even, like, if you were like, what is a midwife? Like, just Google Ina May Gaskin. Like, she never went.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she's got her own farm in Tennessee where she's been delivering babies for, I feel like it's been like, 40 or half a century? I mean, it's been a long time.
But again, it turns into political. People really respect her, but it's a political thing where she's not, delivering in the place that it's just it's political. And so, hospital systems consider maternal health a lost leader. And I'm not going to be quiet about talking about this anymore. And that means it's a service that leads to those women coming back for other services. But when a woman has a traumatic birth experience, she's going to never go back to that hospital, and she's never going to refer a friend to give birth at that hospital. And women, as mothers, do things via word of mouth. Yeah. And that's how you build your tribe. It's how you build your community. It's how you remove the alienation that women are experiencing right now. It's how you say to a friend, I feel like I might be depressed. What do I do? Do you know anything? And she can be like, I felt the same way too, or be like, I don't know what you're talking about, but let me help you. So it's unfortunate that, like, with the current statistics that are happening in our country, that women, that the business sees one of the most pivotal time in a woman's life as a lost leader. And if you don't know what that means, just Google it now when you're watching this, and it's a business term. And it's like, how do we fix that? Like, how do we fix that? Is it conversations like this? Is it apps? Is it tools like Little Mothers Helper? Is it?
I think ultimately that the majority of people are always going to have that white coat syndrome, where the doctors are coming in and telling them what they need to do, and they're just going to trust that. Like, well, he's a doctor. Well, he knows. Yeah. And that is absolutely true to a certain extent. But there's also a level of power that you can take back in your own birth experience.
Yeah. And I have a lot of my closest friends are OBs, and like my heart goes to that. I've seen some really hard deliveries. Like I do, so I might not be a nurse, but I do have had great collaborative relationships where I get to go into the surgical suites and help women with, C-sections and all that kind of stuff. And, I remember watching a C-section, when I was just out of school with a rotation I was doing with this OB, and the OB, we got out of the surgery, and she just said that was the hardest C-section I've ever done in my whole life. And she had delivered probably 4,000 babies at that point. C-sections aren't hard surgeries. They can be risky, but they're not difficult surgeries. And this one was just like very, hard. And it was one of those moments where, there's a lot of midwife bashing and OB bashing. Like there's just like a lot of upheaval. And again, it doesn't benefit the mom at all. So, which makes me cry. And I just said to her, it just shifted everything inside of my cellular body about like that job is such a big job.
Oh my God.
You know, and so is being a midwife, and so is anyone who is responsible for the care of two human beings at one point in their lives when, again, it's one of the most monumental times in a woman's life.
I say it's the most vulnerable time that a woman, because only women can give birth. It's the most vulnerable time for a woman next to dying. That those are, I think, the two times that you will be the most vulnerable in your life is when you're dying and when you are actually birthing and bringing a human being earthside.
Isn't it crazy? It's amazing.
Yeah. So, but you know, I also want to bring this up because this is just interesting to me, and I think it's beautiful. Is that you actually don't have any children at all, but you have, and you said just a few conversations ago, or a few sentences ago, you said it's not beneficial for the mom, and it almost makes me want to cry. Like the fact that you haven't personally experienced that yet, and you have such a drive to make a difference for that person, and that like you feel so connected to that work. To me, it's like, talk about that with me, because like, where do you think that comes from?
Look, I'm gonna start crying again.
Okay, no, like, where does that come from? Like, you haven't even embarked on that journey yet, but your passion is like so raw and intense for a woman in that time of her life. Where is that coming from?
So that's a great question. I see 3 phases showing up. So for those of you watching, we have a very unique and very cool relationship, and we talk a lot about other worlds and spiritual worlds. I'm just going to go there for right now.
Oh no!
And so
please,
I see pictures. So I see my lineage of women in my family is one of those places. I was raised by an incredibly strong group of women, and raised to be very independent. My mom's side of the family, and I really associate the most with her side of the family, is from East Texas. And my grandmother was she was Louisiana French. So I think half Cajun, half Louisiana French. So, and such a cool woman. I love that woman. And so, but she raised 3 really different, strong women. And then my mom raised my sister and I, and that love for women and community comes, I think, really from my roots.
Okay.
When I was in midwifery school, my aunt was a nun who lived in Lafayette, Louisiana, very all Cajun all the way. And she called me, and she passed away the first semester of midwifery school. And but she called me, and I had studied Reiki a long time ago. And she's just like, you're like the traiteur of the family, you know? So, and that traiteur in that thing in Louisiana is the person who goes out into the community and does all the medicine work. So if we had modern medicine women, it would have been that thing. So I was like, well, that's kind of a cool thing to be, you know, but I'm going to keep that quiet and sacred. Very matter of fact.
But I'm putting it out.
I'm going to keep that really quiet and sacred.
Well, I asked you a serious question. So.
You asked me a big question, and because and so then also my personal life, that the way I usually answer that question is I got into this for women's health. Again, I was raised by strong women. I've always wanted to do medicine. When I finally found my way to midwifery, it made sense. The other picture I see is that there is this thing that goes on. Mm-hmm. And when you get to be on the side of the sitting with a woman in labor for hours or days even, and she finally has her baby, and everybody's out and healthy, and the room has quieted down. It generally happens within the first 5 minutes. There is this unexplainable thing that goes on in the universe at that time. And it is that moment when, you can go to, one of my favorites is this woman, Monet. It used to be Cord Mamas, but I think it's now on Instagram, Monet Birth Photography. I'm not sure. And, but it used to be Cord Mamas, and she just captures birth right at that moment where it's there's the magic is in the room. And, no matter,
you're bringing a human earth side.
Yeah.
That is,
yeah.
I don't fucking care what you believe. That is the most magical thing. That's why I always said, even right now, with women, I feel like people just look out on the road and they're like, oh, she's pregnant. But if you were to really stop and really think about, It's fucking magic. It's
It's magic.
it's like, that's the only word I can think of.
It's
Like,
magic.
we literally
Yeah.
giving life.
Yeah.
Go on.
So you see that vulnerable moment and you're like, I fell in love with every person I got to work with, and I got to know their stories. I mean, I remember, like the story, if I could just I don't even know how I could begin to share all the stories of all the incredible women I've gotten to work with, and like the Native American who gave her birth to her baby in her trailer park in the toilet, like when we're like, how are we going to all fit in this bathroom and make sure that like we can resuscitate the baby if we, what I'm saying? So it's like, and yet you still knew her story, and to preserve that strength that a woman has prenatally. I'm like, I am gonna do this. I am in the house. I am gonna bring this into the world. I'm scared shitless. I don't know. I'm gonna fuck this baby up, like all that kind of stuff. But like at the same time, women before they have their babies are extremely strong. But then that vulnerability, just like it gets so big postpartum, and then your hormone system, and you actually have to heal your body from a really big event. Healing from a C-section can be really hard. You can get sick. You can get an infection. Your baby can be, like all those things that can happen, but you just don't focus on them. Like we want to help that strong thing stay that way. So that's one thing. But then there's this other picture, this last picture that I see. And this is more of that kind of oovy groovy weird off of their world.
First of all, it's not weird. Like, I'm just going to say it. I completely,
I know.
I believe in energy. I believe in basically, if I had to somehow relate to a culture, I think I would have to relate to more of like a Native American sort of culture with.
Yeah. But you have it in your blood, that's why. And
but
so,
I have.
I
don't, though. I don't.
You don't? Oh.
No. I mean, my skin color may look like I do, but I don't.
I thought you did, yeah.
I know, right? I always say, I really honestly believe that I was a part of some sort of something Native American in another life, because the draw that I have to it, and I feel like I resonate with it. Yet again, I have no frame of, like, there's nobody in my family. Like, I don't have that. I mean, maybe if we did, it was so far, far back, but there's nothing. So it's, that's why I always.
Yeah. Well, and I believe we can, I believe we can train and see beyond our world.
Yeah.
And part of my cultural heritage is that there's a lot of weird shit that goes on in southern Louisiana. So
I know, I live there. I lived there
there's
for
a lot
2
of weird
years.
shit. So the last thing is like the thing that like drives me to, I mean, there's the stuff that I don't share that that I'm not totally comfortable sharing publicly yet about why I haven't had kids yet. But like the final thing is that like my picture is I have had these moments of like I'll be receiving work myself, like energy work myself, and like one situation that I haven't really shared with anybody other than my woman, who is a nurse. She's a really cool woman up here. And we were working together last year when I was doing Kickstarter for Little Mother's Helper. And and all of a sudden I heard this, like, it was as if, like, when you come up to a playground when you're picking up the kids and how loud the voices are, because it's like all the kids are playing on the playground. It's like, ah! It's just like this, like, cheering section, right? And, and I felt like there's I felt like this huge bus went by her office window and they were like screaming and you could just feel them playing and there was a lot of joy and there was all this stuff. And then it like came and it went just like a bus would, right? And then it was silent. And so when I came up and out, I said, "Did you hear that bus of kids go by? It was really fun to like hear that in the process." And she's like, "Nope." I was like, "Oh God, I'm going crazy." But she's like, and then we just talked about it. And she said, "It's your work is so meant for the mothers, and really like if you can help heal what is broken from the system wise and in the individual mother, it's those were the kids, their children."
I have like major chills right now, and I say what is coming to mind real quick. Like, I do. I have like major chills all over my body. So I almost think that bus full of children is the children that you have either birthed or that you will help birth, and not even necessarily physically just from your hands, but even from your company that you have now that's going to help a mother. And so I just want to feel like that's I feel like
hope so.
That was
all the kids. That's what we thought it was too.
And all the kids.
Like one of those moments. And like, so this week I've actually really had a hard time. When I went and pitched Baylor hospitals in Texas, and and it was great conversation, and they could do a big sale, but they still again say maternal health is a lost leader. And I come away from that, and I'm just my heart, that same feeling that like goes and like works for mothers, like because I believe in mothers.
Well, wait, hold on. Before you get into that, for the people that haven't Googled lost leaders, just very quick, what does that mean?
Lost leader is it's a business. It's either a product or a service, i.e., delivery in a hospital, that then results in a woman consuming more of the services or more of the product. So it's a something that doesn't really matter, but then but then leads you to go use the pediatrician there. Maybe they use the oncologist there when your husband or you get cancer, or like
so basically they're saying it's a lost leader because they deliver once and we don't get them back. It's like just wow. Well, that's just gonna put it out there.
I don't understand it fully. Every time I get the opportunity to talk with another VP of something in a major medical system, I say, talk to me about why maternal health is lost leader to you. And I do a lot of like asking, instead of like going in and being like, my name is Rebecca Egbert, I'm the CEO and founder of the Mother Love. We have a product called Little Mother's Helper and da 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 da. I go in and I say, tell me about the experience women are having here at this hospital. And I just shut up and listen, and sometimes I want to interject, but I'm like getting better and better and saying, what are your satisfaction rates? Like, what are you hearing from your patients? Like, are they referring, another mom to you? Like those kind of things. Because if hospitals aren't listening to that, then they're really not listening to the culture of womanhood. And so for the last year, I've really been focusing on the hospitals. And all of a sudden, after this last pitch in Dallas, I was like, screw that. Like, we're going back to the mom. We're like, it's a big pivot. It's a little bit terrifying, and yet it's also very empowering to say that's how I got started in this business, and that's how the revolution's going to change and how we're going to grow. There's a lot of people out there in the world right now, women doing different little baby revolutions in the maternal health sector, but I really want to change the thinking of the providers. And the cool thing about this is, and we can get off this topic if you want to, but is that recently the shift too is that the OBs are coming to me saying, you have this intimate touch with women across the world right now. And how do we have that conversation via you and through your community, and ask them the questions about how to change what we're doing in our practices, really, so they don't get sued, because women are starting to get
educated.
And educated.
So, okay.
So that's cool.
Yeah, no. And I completely agree. Educate yourself. All right. But I want to get into actually this new company. I mean, it's not, when I say new, he didn't start it yesterday. It's been going for years. I want to talk about this really cool deck of cards called Little Mother's Helper. Yeah. What you created and what this offers somebody, and why it's different from the Have Your Best Birth 101 and aftercare that you can find at the local bookstore, So tell me about that. Yeah, so Little Mother's Helper was like a download. I don't know if you've talked about it's like one of those things. Downloads are like those things that you have to like go after. So LB probably was a download where you're like, God, there's something missing for me as a mother. I got to go make this. Oh thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there was a hole. It's just that. So it was a download, and I was reading a bunch of research on postpartum depression, which is just really exciting reading, and then I just got this like very clear, like on the middle of an airplane in the dark night, like be like, okay, I got to do this thing. So Little Mother's Helper is it's a deck of cards. So it's called Little Mother's Helper, a postpartum health companion. It is designed to like the question, so what's it for? It's designed to help women with their mental health, physical health first, mental health second, emotional health third, and their spiritual health fourth, because we think of women as a whole being. For 6 weeks postpartum to any time they want to stop using the cards. Right. They're really designed for 6 weeks postpartum to 12 months to a year postpartum. But really, there's some very new emerging research that says that our bodies take about 10 years to heal after you have your last baby, to really get out of a postpartum period. Or postnatal period. So I want to ask you a question. When I first had my son, and I mean, in addition to my vagina being very sore and healing, and I was experiencing the stuff that you do, which is sore down there. I was sleep deprived, but for the most part, I really felt like I was actually kind of thriving in the beginning.
Totally.
I was, I just, no one helped me breastfeed. I put it on. My mom told me one thing before she died. I knew that she breastfed all of his kids, but she just always said to me, you breastfeed your kids, and that was it. So it was like when I thought about me having kids, there was no other option. So it was like I'm just gonna put them on my boob. And I read something out of Ina May's book about breastfeeding, about like kind of how, and then that was it. And I took that with me to the hospital, and it happened. But I started to feel really dark and really unstable mentally and emotionally around 8 months postpartum. So
that's the magic number. I swear to fucking God, it's the magic number.
Because people say that it's like 6 weeks after, something like that, something more closer to. But what I experienced was that, so from that 8 months, and it went on, and I didn't realize, I still kind of don't really know what was happening. All I know is that I would actually start to feel fearful if Jeremy left me. Like, the thoughts would come in my mind like, oh my God, what if I just hurt my baby? What is stopping me from hurting my baby? So then just having the fact that I was even having those thoughts freaked me out even more. And then I felt like it was just, there was this
very real.
Oh my God. It was really scary. And honestly, and I don't feel like I had the support that I needed at that time. And I don't think it was out of, like, from Jeremy at the time. And it wasn't that like he wouldn't want to be there for me, but like he would just be like, you're going to be okay. You're going to be fine. Like, he didn't understand what was going on. Like, I couldn't sleep. I was getting sleep startled, and
that is really common. So what you're describing is really common, and to me, it is still a maternal health complication, right? Okay. So you should still be in the care of somebody. There are certain clinics around this country that actually are doing research where they extend the care out into that first year, just so women know that, like, that for that first year that they can go, because they've seen the same thing I saw. So you asked me earlier, like, what was the lack, and it was that I had multiple. When I say we had the phone thing, I said that earlier. I would get phone calls, text messages. I would go over to friends' houses, all that kind of stuff at around 6 to 8 months postpartum, and there would be the same gap. So when I did, like, I spent the first 2 years, you're right, my business isn't new. I spent the first 2 years really doing market research.
Yeah.
And saying what's missing. And it's like this whole series of education that if you had Little Mother's Helper, maybe you would have been like, oh yeah, I have this toolkit, like, by my bedside or in my phone or on my coffee table or whatever it is, that says, oh wow, these little symptoms right here sound a lot like anxiety. And here it says,
the thing is, I have anxiety. So
so then if you already have, and like, that's another thing. So it's like, what are the risk factors of any maternal mood disorder or anything? And that's what Little Mother's Helper has been said by certain hospitals to be the easiest, best maternal mental health education that they've ever seen yet, at least, like, for women to receive. Because again, we talk to you like you and I are talking to each other. And then but like with that maternal, like with the mind section of the card, I just wanted to make it so relatable, like that. It's like, if I was reading it and I was in a state of shock, trauma, adjustment, anything that is, like, you go from those really awesome birth hormones, and when they leave your body,
well, that's what I'm trying to ask you, is that
really, they leave your body.
It started around 8 or 9 months, and then it went on until, honestly, it went on until about 17 to 18 months. And that was around the time that I stopped breastfeeding. So in addition to, if I had some sort of anxiety thing going on, then it was coupled with the hormones and I think I want to bring that up because I didn't realize it at first, but actually weaning breastfeeding can really trigger things too.
Of course, again, it's another hormone shift, so it's another hormones again. They live in different locations in our bodies, but they're neurological. They're driven by our like a neurological system. And so our endocrine system. So those things, everything, of course, in your body works in harmony, right? But the minute you stop doing this thing that you've been focusing on and fueling for such a long time, then all of a sudden that system has to be like, whoop, okay, we're not that body anymore. Like, let's go back to that other body that we were before, which you haven't been for 2 years. And so then and that's what's cool is when, like for me, when I do continuing education and I bump into these providers who are really doing forward thinking research, and you're just like, oh my God, you're explaining so much. And we are really lucky and that we have this right now, because even though like you have such a beautiful, rich tribe of people that are watching this, I know right now, we still might live millions of miles away from each other, you know, and that makes it really hard when you are home alone. And Absolutely. We don't live close to our parents, and maybe we don't have great relationships. Our mothers aren't alive, you know, like
on top of it, I had relocated to New Orleans.
Yeah, I know.
Jeremy, you know, he works in the film business. So when he's on a movie, it is so demanding. His job is so demanding. So he was gone for so much of the day. And here I am alone with all these feelings we're talking about and a toddler. And I don't know anybody, and I'm in an apartment complex. You know, it's like, and I think, and I felt shame. And I think that's one of the things is that is what stops women from going and saying something's wrong. If women can get past the shame and go, I don't know what's going on here. Can someone please help me?
Yeah. Or like through the shame. So like, saying,
Yes, through it, because there is this thing that when you have a child, and that's why I think so many women, it's like you're like a deer in headlights sometimes, because whatever is depicted through movies or through, you know, Instagram. Marketing or Instagram, it's bullshit. I'm telling you right now, guys, it's bullshit. That, you know, when you first have a baby, there's some women, they don't even feel connected to them.
No,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I heard that story like in the last week from a woman who you'd be like, you would now know, you'd be like, no, that wasn't you. I was in New York or somewhere like that. But she just said to me, you know, it took me, she's like, that baby came out and I looked at it and I was just like, oh shit, I'm not connected to it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah. And she's like, and she's a very normal, loving, awesome, whole, cool person. But at the same time, and she's like, it took me a solid 3 months to feel connected to my kid. And I would talk to my husband about it, and he didn't get it. So there's like also in Little Mother's Helper, we really like the heart section is all like about relationship building. And again, what you don't get, like what I gave to my clients, because I heard it along my journey as a midwife student or midwifery student, was like at 32 weeks, let's talk about how you're going to take care of the relationship when you have a kid, because it's going to change.
Oh yeah.
And as much as you don't think it's going to change, and you're going to like, you're both going to wildly love this baby, but there's going to be a day where you, the woman, is just like, I cannot fucking stand my husband today. I want to like, I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm taking this baby and we're going to go get an apartment. And that was like one of my stories with my best friend. And she helped me like get ideas generating for this business, you know, a few years ago. But I walked into her house and she, baby on her hip, and she's just like, I'm done. I'm leaving. I'm going to go get an apartment. And I said, I don't know about that. Let's talk about that. You know, like, let's talk about that. And, you know, within 2 weeks, she was in therapy. Her husband was in therapy. Like, they really are action takers. They're normally married and
Thank you.
raising toddlers, you know, so, and they like still deal with the struggle, but like, because the struggle is real, but, you know, it's that they got through their shit, but it took a serious load of work, and having their second baby was even more revolutionary in the relationship, because it was just heavy. Yeah. It was very heavy. Yeah. But you know, there's, all these things we just don't talk about, you know, and again, it doesn't make I think they're the social media posts that garner the most likes when we get really real like that, but you very rarely see someone being like, oh, I woke up today and I just really wanted to push my husband out of the house and like do this shit on my own. You know, you don't see that much, because you're shame, right? Again, you feel ashamed or like
there is a level of, you have to uphold a certain sort of thing, you know, like as a mom or whatever. And even though this isn't exactly it, but even kind of loosely connected to it, that's kind of even how I started my company. Like, right. I just was like, whatever this mold is about motherhood, and like, I connected with motherhood, I connected with my son, and I loved being his mom, but I didn't connect with the idea of what society has presented to me for so long about what I should look like, how I should sound, what I should dress
Right.
like, what I shouldn't dress, what kind of music, what kind of car I should be driving. Like, I'm not fucking driving a minivan. And
Right.
that's not a knock on a woman driving a minivan. But for
No.
me, it was like, I'm not doing that. You know, I don't fit this mold. So I kind of
Yeah.
created from that. Sorry.
And we have so many different women in this country, at least in the United States, giving birth. So many different cultures, so many different types of community surrounding womanhood and motherhood, and different communities do better jobs of lifting the new mother up.
Yep.
And I would say that like our Caucasian community really needs some work around that. Henceforth, bring in people like you and me. Like, trying our best every day to like bring more connection, you know, and whether it is through products, I think that these like offspring services and conversations and the way we engage with people on social media and all that kind of stuff, it's like, you know, that is the way we relate to each other right now, and it's a great thing. And it's also, we just really need to bring in, like, there needs to be harmony and homeostasis. I think you and I talked about homeostasis recently on like a quick call, you know, and just that thing of homeostasis is when your body's regulating all its fluids right and all the oxygen right and all the hormones right and everything like that. And it takes a lot of work to get there, you know. So
Girl, it's
then that's a little bit what we're doing.
I do want to say though about Little Mother's
Yep.
Helper, I really, you know, the goal and what's happening is you're getting these into hospitals, which is
Trying.
yeah, but I'm saying, you know, that you have,
Yep.
and you're also,
Yes, we have.
yeah, you're continuing to, but which I think is amazing that if, you know, and you sent me, I think it was 2 decks, like this was like when you did your Kickstarter, and
Yep.
I was like, you know, at this point in time, I'm not having another child, but I was like, I can't wait until I can actually gift these. And I did a giveaway for one through LB. Like, I wanted them to know about the deck of cards, and then another one was a family friend, and it was his wife that was having the second, and so she got them. But rave reviews from both of them, and it's really something. Again, it's, I think the most important thing about Little Mother's Helper is it starts a conversation, and I think that is the most important thing, because you can have all of the data. I mean, the data that you have is not necessarily all brand new, but it's the way,
not at all.
Yeah, it's the way you've compiled it. It's the way you've made it relatable. It's the way that people can pick it up. And like I said, the biggest thing is when you pick it up, and even if you pick up, like, there's one about the boobs, and I love it. It's like my favorite illustration.
Boob issues.
Boob issues. But that in itself, if I'm sitting there with someone, I'm going to talk about that just because the illustration alone.
Our designer, she does stuff for Bando and for Design Love Fest, so she's kind of got a great little crew of women she works for. Yeah, she's a magic maker. Maddie and I.
You, girlfriend.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm excited about seeing Little Mother's Helper grow more and more, because even from the time that you and I have connected, it has grown tremendously.
Yeah, I'm excited because the plan, the vision is to really make it a library of information in the same voice from puberty to postmenopause, which is hopefully the rest of my life working. Again, there's moments where I'm like, the other night, like on the floor crying for all the women in this country. Like in tears. I was in a fetal position. I was like, God, I hate that.
If you don't for 1 minute think that you're not an empath, you need to go get your head checked, because you are. And that's why I think it's so beautiful, because again, you're a woman who at this point in her life hasn't embarked on becoming a mom for herself, but the journey and all of that of motherhood resonates with you so much.
Oh yeah.
So to me, I mean, that's why I find amazing about it all, is that the passion and the drive that you have behind it. Girl, you good.
Thank you. You're a good sister. You're a good sister.
I mean, totally. So where can people, I know that, like I said, you really focus, you know, you're dealing on a larger scale and with hospitals, but what if somebody is having a baby shower? What if, like, someone's like, my friend is pregnant, she needs this, you know, I'd love to get it for her. How much is it? Where can they get it?
Yep. Well, our biggest pivot right now is back to the consumer, back to you guys, you know, back to mom, because I'm tired of the hospitals being dicks. Sorry.
This show, hold on.
I'm so tired of it. I love my conversations. I feel privileged to have them, but like, it is all about the woman having a baby and this, like, that's it. So on our website, there's a place where you can shop and buy them. I just knocked the price down to $22, so it comes to about $31 to ship around the country.
Yep.
When it's overseas, it's more money because for some reason a stupid book is a lot of money to ship. But you can also download the app if you like an app form. We really like the store and retrieve system that the cards set up in a person. So it's meant like to be like a flashcard, right, or like a tarot deck. Because once you start really...
Shout out to the Wild Unknown Tarot deck. That's what I use.
I know, right? Thank God. No, they literally, she was like a main reason. I was just like, everyone's like dying for tarot decks. I've been using them for my whole life. And so I was like, let's make it like a tarot deck. Why not? So, yeah, so the website and then the app store, both Google Play and iTunes, and
awesome. Also
pivoting towards making a really huge platform, and that will be our work for 2017. Of course, Instagram and Snapchat, but I'm deciding which Instagram stories, Snapchat, so they're both fun.
You are big on Snapchat. You can find Rebecca, who is, the genius behind Little Mother's Helper. You snap a lot, and she's all about literally her day in and day out journey. So if you're thinking you're going to get like makeup.
Even my zits.
Exactly. It's totally real. You can find her on Snapchat. What's your handle on there?
It's the Mother Love.
Mother Love. Yep. And then Instagram, they can get you where?
The Mother Love.
Boom. That's where you can find it.
So,
and then does Little Mother's Helper have their own Instagram?
We are just The Mother Love. So our company is called The Mother Love, and because we're going to build the product line out, we're just going to keep focusing on that.
Well, you know what? You know what I see in the future at some point? What? I'm talking about LV is going to curate probably the best start box for a mom. And I'm going to have Little Mother's Helper in that. So I think there's going to be a collab coming up soon.
I think that's a brilliant idea. I love that.
Between clothing, accessories, and then everything for spirit, mind, body. Yeah, so
it's the way we're moving. It's the way we're moving. I feel like it's gonna be small and then it's gonna be a big force. In this election.
All right. Well, listen. Thank you so much. And again, you can find Rebecca at The Mother Love on Instagram as well as Snapchat. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.